The news day continues here on One News Now. I'm Riza Diaz. A retired Supreme Court Senior Associate Justice says sending a demand letter for the Marcos family to settle their 203 billion peso estate tax is not enough. Antonio Carpio said a criminal case should be filed against them, including presidential bet Bongbong Marcos Jr. over their willful refusal to act on it. He also pointed out the importance of a strong stance from the executive branch.
Wala namang ginagawa ang BIR. Siguro, naghihintay ng instruction si Dulay kay President Duterte. Si President Duterte naman, bahala na kayo. It's your legal duty. Then nagping-pong ngayon.
Carpio added that the Bureau of Internal Revenue may also be sued for negligence over its failure to collect the payment for the estate tax. He warned that the government could no longer force the Marcoses to pay for it once Marcos Jr. wins the presidency.
My point is, hindi na kolekta yan kasi they occupy high government elective positions. Lalo na pag nanalo yan si Bongbong, si Marcos Jr., pag naging presidente niyan, goodbye. Kasi the president controls the entire executive. He can reverse their decision. Any official in the executive department, he can reverse, or he can preempt. He can decide for that official.
Meanwhile, Senator Coco Pimentel has called on the Senate to probe the BIR's failure to collect the Marcoses' unpaid estate tax. In a resolution, Pimentel emphasized that the debt payment can be used to fund the government's proposed subsidy programs. These include the 200 peso monthly ayuda to the poorest of the poor and wage subsidy amounting to 24 billion pesos for around 1 million minimum wage workers. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has caused changes in trade patterns and economic dealings across the world. But how does this affect the competition among tech giant countries? Let's watch this.
Everybody's talking about Russia, but also the implications in U.S.-China relationships. And there's no doubt about it. And there's a lot of speculation that China and the U.S. will separate economically. I really don't think that'll occur. The reason I say that is these economies are too large and too interconnected to the world. You mentioned payment systems, flow of capital, all those things these economies are dependent upon. So I don't think separation totally occurs. However, as I say that, there's no doubt, I believe, that when it comes to technology and future technologies, there's going to be competition between the two countries. And that's more so, I'll say, China-US. I mean, Russia really doesn't have the kinds of technologies that we're talking about. But if you think about things like semiconductors, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, cyber computing, clearly there's going to be competition. And therefore, I think there'll be less collaboration between China and the United States.
So if that happens, because it certainly looks right now like that's where it's heading, we're not heading to a one big globe where we're all the same and we all deal with each other, maybe more separation, particularly in areas like tech. If that happens, how are we, and for the moment, I'll say the United States, situated? Because some people are concerned that China, for example, has really been investing a lot more in tech than we have been.
There's no doubt about it. I mean, I think last year alone it was 1.5 trillion. We're estimates in that range. So yes, China is out investing the United States. They're not out investing the West. So I'll comment on that a little bit. But I mean, as you think about it, it's on this U.S.-China focus. I mean, I call it the Super Bowl of geopolitics. You know, it's the Titans. If you look at it today, to use a sports analogy, the U.S. is about a 3-point favorite in the game, going into the game. However, China is spending a lot and they're catching up and could have a heck of a fourth quarter. So my point being in that analogy, David, is the fact that the U.S. needs to leverage the world. It cannot go alone. And I believe there's great capability, what I'll say sports analogy, from an all-star team, there's great capability in Europe and Japan and Southeast Asia. So if the West could come together, i.e. as they've come together when it comes to the Ukraine, if they could come together and optimize their focus, their investments, I think they clearly could continue to lead and out-compete China.
So, Sam, I want to come back to if they can come together, because that could be a big if. But let's assume that could happen. Who's on our team, so to speak, to continue your Super Bowl analogy? Who are the major players in tech on our team?
I think the major players, if you go through it, I mean, if you look at take semiconductors as an example, I think it's a good example. Everybody's focused on manufacturing capacity called fabs. That's important because there's such a dependency on Taiwan. Again, there's concerns and risk over China and the Taiwanese relationship. Having said all that, there's different elements to the ecosystem in semiconductors. There's the tools to fabricate, there's the design tools, there's the materials, there's packaging, and there's great expertise, especially in Europe. Europe has great research and great expertise in many of these areas. South Korea and Japan has great expertise in the manufacturing tools and manufacturing side of the house. So my point being is that if you look at the capabilities, the U.S. certainly leads today in design and packaging. There's no doubt about it, and the research capability. But you combine these capabilities between Europe, mostly Germany, Japan, and I say really South Korea and Singapore, but those countries within those regions, you can see how this thing could align. And they're nations that the U.S. works quite well with, as you well know.
Let's now take a quick look at today's other top stories. At least 36 volcanic earthquakes were recorded in Taal volcano in the past 24 hours. PVOX reports that there was also an upwelling of hot volcanic fluids in the main crater, while up to 900-meter plumes were observed. Over 300,000 passengers rode the trains off the MRT-3 on Friday, a first since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the country over 2 years ago. MRT-3 management says the deployment of new train sets during rush hours and the increased capacity contributed to the surge in the number of passengers. And in sports, the Creamline Cool Smashers have booked their slot in the PVL Open Conference Finals after defeating the Choco Mucho Flying Titans in Game 2 of the semifinals 3-1. Meanwhile, the Signal HD Spikers and the Petrogas Angels are battling it out as the HD Spikers also look to advance to the finals. And for more updates, visit News 5, The Philippine Star, and Business World Online. Visit our website, onenews.ph, for more in-depth analysis. You can also catch One News on Signal Play app. Register for a free account now at www.signalplay.com and stream One News live anytime, anywhere. I'm Riza Diaz. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines. We are One News.